suicide and gun violence. So we have some accomplishments for the school year. For the past school year, we provided the Family Connection Summit in 3 places: in Aki Crossing Middle School, Yesler Community Center, and Denny Middle School, in 6 languages: in English, Spanish, Vietnamese, Oromo, Amharic, and Tigrinya. We also provided a workshop, Hello Future Prevention Workshop for Aki Crossing Middle Schools. And we also we are working at Aki Crossing Middle School and Franklin High School in source of strengths. And 3,000 people reached out through Hello Future promotion tables at 20 events last summer. 500,000 people reached out through Most Still Clear and Hello Future videos, billboards, and light rail ads. We also revised our 5-year strategic plan from 2025 to 2029 this year, and we are building bridges between organizations and communities. Those are our partner organizations that we are cooperating in solidarity and supporting the diverse community organizations and members. I don't need to read every one of them, but you can see the slides. We are working with the schools, non-profit organizations, community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, medias, and some other organizations in South Seattle area. So those are the list of partner organizations that we are working with. So for more information, you can contact me at abduji@neighborhoodhousewashington.org, or my cell phone is right there. We have a monthly coalition meeting every other Wednesday of each week. So if you are interested, you can join us and you can be a member of our coalition. And those are our websites for Southeast Seattle P.E.A.C.E Coalition, Most Still Clear, and Hello Future campaigns. Thank you so much. I don't have enough more time to talk about this. I just have 5 or 4 minutes. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you, our mayor. Thank you, other speakers, panelists for coming here. Thank you, parents and the youth, residents of South Seattle area. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your presence, and it has a great meeting for our community. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much, Abdu, for doing all that you do for Southeast Seattle. Next, we have 2 amazing students that come from Franklin High School, and they are part of the Sources of Strength group. Woo! So they're going to go ahead and give a presentation on what they've done in the last year and more about Sources of Strength and what it is in Franklin High School. So I'm going to hand this over. We have Kate and Sabella.
Hello everyone, my name is Sabella and I'm a sophomore at Franklin High School.
I'm Kate and I'm a freshman. Sources of Strength is a student-led mental health, suicide and violence prevention program that helps the community, and it helps many other aspects of the school, specifically in SPS.
Students in Sources of Strength are trained to help their peers by making connections to mental health and community services in school. In Sources of Strength, our projects are always community and self-care focused. This year, we partnered with the YMCA and our family support specialists at Franklin, and we've divided ourselves into 5 subcommittees.
The subcommunities are I Am Strong, Be Confident, Self-Love, Belonging and Community, and Love. Our main criteria for each of our projects, just in general, is to make sure our classmates feel loved, supported, and safe at Franklin. We pick typically like a topic off the side. Those are from the wheel of Sources of Strength, and we make sure that that is relevant to the students at the time.
Projects are created and led by students. When you create a project, you want an impact on your school. The wheel topics help Sources members effectively help their classmates. Being a part of Sources of Strength means showing up for yourself and your community. Members practice self-care, boundary setting, and emotional awareness.
We build leadership skills through connection, trust, and peer support. In Sources of Strength, it's a space where vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, can we get one more round of applause for Sabella and Kate? So, Sources of Strength has been operating at Franklin High School for almost 2 years now. And I am just so proud of the students and all they've accomplished and just the sense of community that they have. So, thank you again for coming today.
Next, we are going to head to our Q&A with our panelists. So I would like to let all the panelists who come on stage here. We have your name tag, so feel free to go to your section. We have a set of questions right now that we predetermined with the panelists, and then we will have a Q&A section after where you guys, our community, will get to ask questions to our lovely panelists. So can we get a round of applause for all of our panelists today?
Okay, so I am going to go ahead and pass the mic around so everyone can introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, my name is Erika Evans and I'm the newly elected Seattle City Attorney.
Hi everybody, I'm Heidi Tuttle and I'm your captain here at South Precinct.
Everybody's standing. I don't like to stand, but that's okay. Hi, everybody. Joseph C. I'm with the Seattle Community Police Commission. I also lead a nonprofit, Oceania Northwest.
Hi everybody, I'm Caitlin and I'm part of Sources of Strength at Franklin High School.
Hi, my name is Sabella. I'm a sophomore at Franklin High School.
Hi, I'm Dionne Foster. I'm newly elected Seattle City Council member.
Hi everybody, Eddie Lynn, Seattle City Council member for Southeast Seattle.
Hi everyone, Katie Wilson, your new Seattle mayor.
Good evening, everyone. Ted Howard, Chief Accountability Officer for Seattle Public Schools.
I'm Ben Schulner, Superintendent of the wonderful Seattle Public School System.
All right.
Amazing. Thank you everyone for introducing themselves. So this Q&A is going to be broken up into 2 different sections. We have some questions that we already sent all of our panelists, and we're going to ask those first. And then we're going to open it up into a community-led Q&A. So we'll let you know when we're ready to start accepting questions. And then we will have anyone that wants to ask a question to our panel, if they want to go ahead and line up over here or on the ramp. On the ramp right over here. So if you want to go ahead and line up on the ramp. We are very excited, and I know the community has a lot of questions to ask. So let's get started. Yeah, okay, so I am going to start off the questions for our panelists. And if you would like to respond, if you want to raise your hand and I'll hand the mic over. Okay, so gang violence and youth safety. What will you do to prevent violence and support young people who are affected by youth violence, and how will you work with the community groups to stop violence in Seattle?
Thank you, and I'll just say thank you again to the organizers for doing this. And I know that I think you all were some of the first folks who reached out to us in the beginning of the year and said, hey, can we do this? So thank you. Thanks everyone for being here. We have to actually be here and be accessible to people. And then in terms of our roles as elected officials and the work to make sure that we are investing in, make sure the question again. Community groups and working to prevent youth violence. I think there's a few things. One, I think a lot about making sure that we actually have enough places for people to go and services and things for kids to do. I feel like we need to look at like making sure our community centers are open, making sure that they're well programmed, making sure that we have more, we've talked a little bit about with other colleagues, like what's available for kids who do sports, but if you don't do sports, do we actually have other options for you? So I think we want to make sure that there are investments and things that are available for young people. I think another part of it is making sure that we have community organizations and trusted adults who are around. And I think we have a big role to play there. The city is a major funder, as a lot of people in this room know, and that we are part of resourcing organizations who do this community-based work. And so that's a really important role for us, and I frankly think there has not been enough of that. I know that we're missing the folks who, I think they were like the Blue Jackets who used to kind of walk around and be down on Henderson. I know that there's folks like Community Passageways who have been here for a long time building those trusted relationships, and we appreciate you. And I also think that, I'm going way off script now, but I also want to make sure that we are helping to take care of your mental health. That's been on my mind a lot over these last few days, because you all do a lot. You all do a lot, and I think we see that, and I'm not sure that we've met that need to support you so that you can support the young people in the way that you are doing.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I mean, this is a very heavy moment to be contemplating this question. As I and my team have been talking to folks since Friday, and yesterday down in talking to students, it just really brought home to me just the ramifications of violence like this, and the way that it's both the result of trauma and then perpetuates that trauma and just ripples outward through families, through communities, and we have to do better. So my pledge to all of you is that I'm here, my team is here, and we will continue to be here for this work as we move forward, because we absolutely have to do better.
Thank you for the question. Last year, I was speaking with students at Seattle South Shore, and our young students, one of the biggest things that they spoke to me about is wanting to stop all of the gun violence, that they didn't want their brothers and their classmates to be killed from gun violence. It's something that our youth is speaking out, and they are making it something that is now normal for them, and that is unacceptable. To echo Councilmember Foster and Mayor Wilson, that we are aligned together to making sure we are doing what we can in our offices to provide accessibility and access to our youth. One thing I'm really proud of, I see my husband, who's also a lawyer, Christopher Sanders, in the audience wave. We've led for many years a youth in law forum. So as a lawyer, it's fundamental to make sure that our youth can see themselves in places where we're not traditionally in places. And so having Know Your Rights workshops and having our youth come and have access to lawyers that look like them and opportunities is fundamental and really important. Another thing I'm working on with my team, I see Audrey there right today, we're working on within the city attorney's office to have an internship for high school students to come and get an internship in the Seattle City Attorney's Office, to be able to shadow us as lawyers, for them to see themselves in places that is not traditionally meant for us. So we are doing everything in our power to provide that access, to provide and tap into that brilliance that our youth have, to give them opportunities to excel. Thank you.
Hi, thank you again. As a student and having to hear about what happened on Friday, it was very devastating, especially having people that were close to the people who were lost. At school, when things like this are addressed, it is a sensitive topic, especially as since this is not something that everybody is used to and how they were and what they were raised around. I spoke with the student support specialist at my school, and she told me about how in the past a room in our school was opened up and counselors and therapists would go in, so that way as a space for students to go and process their emotions, whether it's by talking to somebody, being in a group of people that understand how you're feeling, or drawing, whatever you need to make you feel better. I think that's something that we should bring back, because student mental health is very important to me as a student advocate. I am on our student government. I am a BSU member, and I'm also a member of Sources of Strength. And I'm sorry, I am nervous. The thing that happened on Friday was something that happened so close to me that I'm not used to. And so to have people in our schools that are there for us 24/7, no matter what, and understand that when you really need them, that they are there, is something that I believe is very important for us.
You did very well. Yes. Thank you. And we're all nervous too, so don't understand that. I'll speak quickly because I know a lot of people have stuff to say. The impact of what happened on Friday hits especially hard, just because I know that we're all working together more than we ever have been to make our youth safe, and to make what I call the Rainier Beach campus safe, all the schools down there. The idea that this happened right when it felt like we were getting our momentum to make our babies safe, this happened. But to me, this is just more momentum for us to commit to working together. There isn't an us and them as far as I'm concerned with the police department. It's us working with you in collaboration. Historically, it always has felt like we were this piece of the pie over here, and then, we couldn't quite get in. But now I think we're all fighting to be part of the pie equally, because we're all part of the solution. It can't just be us coming in and fixing things. It has to be the kids identifying things and speaking up, the teachers speaking up, the school principals asking for help. It needs to be us working with urban family. It needs to be, with community passageways. There cannot be any more of us and them. It has to be us if we're going to keep our babies safe.
So I'm looking around, and I don't see our young black and brown men, our young black and brown youth. That I think the first step is to engage our young people, our young black and brown youth, around this issue, because they're the ones that have the solutions and the brilliance to resolve a lot of these issues. In the absence of gun legislation, being changed, violence is so steep in this country. I think the antidote that we can do with things that we can control is we need to create spaces where we listen to young people, young black and brown men. Like there's no reason why they're not here, especially when this conversation has to do with them. About 15 years ago, Seattle did the Seattle Youth Violence Prevention Initiative. There was $15 million that was supposed to go to youth violence prevention, and a lot of that money actually went to the police department. And about, I think $1 million went to community, to resource youth workers in community. And, it's sad to say, but not much has changed. Because the priorities that we have is, and whenever there is youth violence, we invest in policing, more policing, while we continue to under-resource a lot of our community networks. The village that really is what's taking care of our young people right now. So, my solution to ending gun violence is, how do we see the village, this is the village, and including our young men, our young black and brown men, how do we continue to resource our villages? And then the Seattle Black Panther created the Seattle Youth Employment Program, which was probably one of the most successful programs at preventing youth violence. Where is it at now? It was underfunded, removed. There's no more coordination with local businesses and local nonprofits to really create economic conditions for our young people to feel confident in themselves. If you don't have anything, if you don't have any economic worth, society tells you that that's all you're supposed to be. You're gonna have extremely low self-esteem, right? And then the other thing is, how do we, we talk to the brothers, the Black Prisoners Caucus, the API groups in a prison, and over and over and over and over, they tell us we need cultural identity development. When we know who we are, we don't choose the path of violence. We actually, we become the dignified, beings that our ancestors have always dreamed for us to become. And so culture, investing in youth employment and all of that, I think, and then resourcing y'all here. And we're not the ones with solution up here. I'm sorry, you guys are the solution, and so yeah, I just wanted to share that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We're gonna go ahead and move on to our next question. Our next question deals with immigration and ICE. It's, how will you make sure immigrants feel safe going to school, clinics, and services, and what can be done to protect Seattle residents from ICE abuse? Feel free to raise your hand.
Thank you for filling the silence.
I was gonna, thanks for asking this question. I think that I always have to start with this acknowledgement of the federal government is way out of bounds, right? They're just way out of bounds. We just have to start there, right? What they're doing is wild. It's terrifying. I was just talking to the school board director on the way over here about the experience of young people when their friends aren't at school the next day, that's happening right now, and the emotional loss that our kids feel when that happens and there's no explanation. So for me, I always have to start with that heart of what's happening before I can sort of talk about what are the things that we can do. And Mayor, I'll let you speak to the things that you announced last week in terms of city property and other pieces. We have to make sure locally that, and I won't do it because you're going to do it, but we have to make sure locally that we are codifying and using legislation to be clear what the bounds are. So we've been saying for years, we're not going to cooperate with ICE, local governments won't cooperate with ICE. Correct. And then it's also time to say the rules, the federal government has been changing the rules, and so we need to keep pace with them. So there's a couple things. There's the investments in the community-based organizations. I'm always going to lead with that. There's making clear that we're not going to use city property, city contractors, city information. We're just not giving it to you, right? I know SPD has a really important role and has been really clear, and the chief just made an announcement yesterday around the work that they are doing to make sure that we are not providing any information and that we are activating and recording, tracking, and documenting to help make sure that if ICE is out of bounds, I mean they are, but that we can actually have the grounds to follow up, to sue, to get injunctions, to stop their behavior. So we need to continue to do that, and then we're continuing to look for new iterations, right? So one thing that's on our radar is in Hennepin County, they created ways for community members to share video recordings, right? We have to make sure that we are investing in our organizations who are supporting our immigrant communities, because we're talking to people who are afraid to go to the grocery store or who are looking for their neighbors to drive their kids to school, right? So we have to continue to do those kinds of iterative partnerships. So I'll let the mayor speak to the announcements that were made about that.
Thank you, Councilmember. Yeah, so it's a scary time, I think, for many of us, and then especially for folks in immigrant communities that are really targets right now. So I actually just came back from the U.S. Conference of Mayors last week, where I had an opportunity to talk to some of the mayors in cities that had experienced a really stepped up ICE presence or federal troops, and it was very, very illuminating. And also really underlined how much it's going to take all of us. So, the city, we can do everything that we can legally do to keep people safe, and that does not mean that we're not going to experience a stepped up ICE presence, that we're not going to experience federal incursion. And so ultimately, it's really about the relationships between the city, all the folks, all the organizations on the ground that are doing the hard work every day of trying to make sure that people don't have to go to their immigration hearings alone, trying to make sure that people have someone to go with them to work or to school if they feel they need that. That being said, we're trying to do everything we can from the city side. So I signed an EO recently announcing, an executive order recently announcing some action. So we're prohibiting ICE from staging on city property. And and encouraging other public entities and private entities to do the same. So part of this too is a partnership with businesses where we're going to be providing signage that businesses can use to demarcate areas as private so that it's very clear that ICE is not allowed to just waltz in. We're also deepening our partnership with SPD on a number of fronts. So there's been a lot of rumors swirling of ICE activity, and so we're really leaning on SPD to help us verify or discount those rumors so that we can provide the most accurate information possible to our community partners, right? Because we know that there is this heightened level of anxiety, which then makes people afraid to leave their homes, which makes people afraid to go to work or to school. And so we're trying as much as possible to be able to provide accurate information to the community and to really be a place where people can come with what they've heard, and then we are able to look into that and then get back to people about what we hear is actually going on. And we're also asking SPD to help us to document ICE activity when it occurs, especially when there might be something harmful or illegal going on. And I guess I'll say, yeah, in addition, just to come back to our community partnerships, so we have $4 million that was allocated in last year's budget process. And so we're working on getting that out there to our community partners to support legal defense work, to support all of the work that folks are doing on Rapid Response Network and on supporting immigrant communities in this time. So we're going to be working to get those resources out into the community where they can do most good. And we're also, I mean, I know there's a lot of folks on the ground who are doing Know Your Rights trainings. Part of this is just making sure that everyone across the city is as informed as possible and as trained as possible, so that when and if we experience a stronger ICE presence, people know what they can do to help protect their neighbors. And so we're going to be continuing to partner with you all, and together we're going to keep people as safe as we possibly can. Thank you.
I want to add that I left the, I'm good? Okay. Before I ran for this office to be city attorney, I worked at the Department of Justice, and the work I was doing before I left involved investigating federal agents that violated people's rights and that were acting unlawfully. That is not happening right now at the Department of Justice. They are not doing investigations on federal officers that are acting unlawfully and breaking the law. I want to make clear that that is not how the Department of Justice is supposed to be acting. They are the body that is supposed to be doing the enforcement and investigations when our rights are under attack and our values and our constitutional rights are violated. That's why the Department of Justice was created, to protect Black people from the KKK. But that's not currently happening right now under this administration. I want to tell you what my office has been doing in partnership. I want to applaud our mayor for the executive order and the work City Council and we're all doing to protect us here in Seattle. Our office filed an amicus brief in support of the lawsuit that Minnesota had against the federal government. And another thing that I want to emphasize to you all is that we are working proactively around the clock with our elected officials, with other cities across our country to prepare and be ready. If ICE were to come in like they did in Minnesota, we will be ready on day one to protect our rights here in the city. Thank you.
Okay, so we are going to move on to the community forum, and I'll have you introduce yourself, and if you want to walk with me. Okay, here you go.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Suad Youssef, and I am a community engagement ambassador as well as a member of NAMI. So our community really is hurting, especially now by the loss of these two young students from Rainer High School. And I need just to address 3 key points for the important leaders in our city. The first key point is safety is not an option. Safety is a right of our students. talking as I used to be a former teacher, so I know how safety is so important. You don't want your kids to come to a classroom and they don't feel safe. So it is very important and also affect their mental illness. The second key point, since we are all here from SPD, the attorney, the city attorney, the council member, the superintendent, the mayor, we need really action. Because what is happening, this is the second time. The first time was in September when there was a shooting there. And this is the second time, and we are losing 2 kids. The third thing here, I'm not blaming anyone. We want just action. We need to work together. And we also, everyone in this room, is responsible for the safety of our kids. We cannot see our kids doing and suffering like this. Our teachers also will not take it easy too. I know that. When you live with students, you feel them, you understand them, you don't want that to happen them. And the third thing, the third key point I want to address beside the safety and the action together, the support we need to give to our kids as an Army member. It's not just in crisis time. We need to give that support at all the times. So thank you, and I hope we all work together in this.
Thank you. Did we have anyone that wanted to speak on this matter? Yeah, we did address some of this, but I'm very grateful that you were able to stand up here and share these things. It is important that we have this discussion. So next, I'm going to have David and I are going to ask, what will you do to help people, especially youth, with addiction and treatment instead of punishment?
Good question.
Here you go.
Thank you all for being here. And as I look at, or I think about a lot of these questions, I see, for me, the answer to so many of these questions is about community. And for us, as absolutely, we need to listen to the youth. Thank you to our Franklin students for being here. I wish we had more youth in the audience. It is hard to get our teenagers to come to community meetings. And I am a parent of a 16 and 21-year-old, and neither of them are here, I have to admit. You know, I've heard so much about the need for us to break down barriers between all the different partners, whether it is, you know, SPD and the city or other city departments and our schools and our housing providers and our nonprofits and, you know, city council and school board. And I do want to give a shout out to the school board members here, Jen LaValle, who represents this district, and Liza Rankin. Thank you for being here. But I don't recall a meeting that I've been to where we've had the mayor and the superintendent and the city attorney and city council and so many, and SPD and so many community leaders all in one room. And I think that makes a difference because it takes time. It takes, you know, what our youth need is they need love. And they need us to know them, and that requires us to get to know each other, to build those relationships, and that does take time. We also absolutely need to action and to act urgently. But again, when I think about, you know, youth gun violence, it is about us working together, getting to know each other as parents. When I think about ICE, it is about mutual aid, and yes, we as a city government need to provide resources and legal defense and protection for observers, but we also as a community need to come together and push back against this rhetoric of hate. And to the way we do that is with love and to honor the, you know, the contributions of our immigrant neighbors, to honor the brilliance of our black boys. And so I think we need to lead with love and to lead with connection and building community. And so I just want to give a shout out to Abdu and to everybody that put this together, because we're not going to solve any of this unless we work together.
I do think treatment is better than punishment, especially in most cases of teens. A lot of the times when a kid has addiction, the parent is told almost immediately. And yes, I do think this is important in some cases where parents should be told, but parents aren't always the most trusted adult in that kid's life. And sometimes when a parent is told, it just makes it worse. I've been a firsthand witness to my friends falling into addiction because their parent was given their vape. Once they were free of whatever phone restriction or day of not going to school they had, they instantly went back. They bought another vape, they continued. And that's because sometimes parents aren't the answer. Sometimes you need another trusted adult to talk to in the building. Sometimes you need to be asked what your perspective is and not what the standard procedure is. Thank you.
All right, okay. So, Kenny Simby, can you wave your hand? Kenny Simby? That brother over there, me and Kenny used to do some youth work back in the day when we were a little bit younger. Now that we're old, we're a little bit removed. But I say this to say that we used to teach this class. Every time like there were like folks that came from backgrounds that didn't know like the urban environment, we do a class called Ropes, but it's really teaching folks to really dismantle some of the belief systems that they come with. And oftentimes, like, addiction is something that is projected on people, right? But it might actually not have any correlation to the problem, right? And so, I want us to be careful not to associate addiction to certain communities that are most impacted, because so often, that's what's done. And in actuality, when you look at all the different economic levels and people that fall into those economic statuses, there's no like disproportionate use by poor communities, right? Everybody uses drugs here. It's a symptom, but it's a symptom of internalized, to me, at least in my experience, it's a symptom of, it's another way of escapism, right? But the real violence is the structural inequality, the economic conditions that our Black and brown young people are growing up in, where they feel displaced, right? And also the economic system that continues to fund white mental health and does not, resource Black and brown people that are actually doing a lot of volunteer labor in our communities, but are not actually paid, but they're really the mental health support systems that our young people need. So I just want us to be very careful, especially as communities of color, that we don't continue to perpetuate those addiction stereotypes on our own communities.
Ensuring we're getting folks into treatment is something that my office, the city attorney's office, did on day one. We sent a memo out to our entire office indicating that we're gonna make sure when folks get referred to our office from the police department that we are giving them an opportunity to get connected with diversion treatment. Because I believe someone dealing with substance use disorder, that the right thing is to connect them with services and treatment, not just to put them in jail and they get back out with no services. That doesn't make sense. It's not current. That old practice doesn't work, and we know it doesn't work. And so I think as us up here, as leaders, as folks that are in positions of power, we need to be smart and good stewards of our public dollars and of public safety, and being creative and evidence-based in how we approach the problem. And I'm really proud of the work. I got a lot of heat. You may have seen in some of the news that we got in essentially materializing what the goal of the Blake fix, which allows folks to get prosecuted for using in public. We just said we're gonna ensure we're respecting what the goal behind that legislative intent was, which is to make sure people that are dealing with substance use disorder have an opportunity to get connected with services and treatment. And that is what our office is doing. We've reserved the right, if someone's not making meaningful progress, to prosecute. but we're making sure we're prioritizing treatment because we know that that is the smart approach to addressing what's not currently working in our streets. Thank you.
So my name is Mary Williams. I'm an SUDP, a substance use counselor, and a person in long-term recovery. And the truth is there's not much youth treatment. It would be really great if they could take that empty wing that's down at the juvenile and make it into a youth treatment. Because we know a lot of youth are especially addicted to cannabis. But anyway, I'm a member of WAYS. I'm also a survivor. WAYS is Washington Against Sexual Exploitation. I'm hoping to see more education and prevention around that this year. I'm also your state committee woman. We are pushing for stronger punishment for buyers and traffickers this year. We want to change it from being a misdemeanor when you use someone for pleasure or money. Right now it's the same punishment as if you take a candy bar or something out of the store. So we want to make that a felony. But tonight I'm wearing my crisis worker hat. So I work on the crisis van in Auburn, and we have very few places overnight, because I was working the graveyard shift, to take women and men who have experienced domestic violence right now. Can you expand services for DV and trafficking victims? Now I know REST over here on Rainier across from Dairy Gold, they're trying to expand their shelter beds. They have 7 or 8 beds for trafficking survivors. And I used to work there actually as their SUDP. But there's not a lot of places to take people. The DV hotline, when you call, a lot of times they'll just tell you, come tomorrow, or, you know, and if you have a woman with children or a father with children, there's not places to take them. So can we allocate some of maybe the supported housing for people who are in crisis from domestic violence?
I feel like I'm in the hot seat. Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is we need a lot more resources in a lot of areas, including domestic violence, including resources for folks who've experienced domestic violence or trafficking. Yeah, I don't know. I could say, like, I'm committed to finding those resources and making sure we're putting them in the right place, right? And part of this too is making sure that we're, again, working with our partners in the right way, right? That the city and the county are working closely together, that we're working with our community-based organizations in the right way. So yeah, we gotta do better, and we need more resources for folks. I mean, I gotta say, one of the most heartbreaking things for me during the campaign was doing a tour of Mary's Place in South Lake Union, right, which is a state-of-the-art family shelter, and they're full up, and they also do kind of intake for family homelessness around the county, right, and try to connect people with other shelters. And they were just talking about how they end up going out and just delivering, supplies to families with kids that are living in tents or vehicles because we just don't have the space anywhere in the system, right? And it's just absolutely devastating. And that's one of the reasons why my office is putting a huge amount of energy into figuring out how can we open up a lot more emergency housing and shelters so that we have more places for people to go. So that's a work in progress, but yeah, and everyone's in a different situation, right? Like, people come into homelessness, people come into housing insecurity from all kinds of different directions, have all kinds of different challenges, whether it's domestic violence or substance use or mental illness, right? And we need to make sure that we have the right resources, the right support for every individual human being, right? Because you can't just shove everyone into the same situation.
That wasn't good enough.
Did anyone else want to speak on this matter, or are we ready for our next community member? Okay, absolutely. Here you go.
The only thing I just wanted to add to that, so the mayor and I both sit on the KCRHA, the King County Regional Homelessness Authority Board, and the thing I wanted to bring into the room is that, well, Mary is an expert and is absolutely right, there's 7 beds, but the other thing with Mary's Place that happens is families are calling in, and families now have one coordinated place to make those phone calls through Mary's Place. But they get, I want to say they told me on that tour that they get something like 60 to 80 calls a day. And they currently there's enough space in our system where they may be able to find a location for 8 to 10 families a week. And so there is a huge gap, and this was something that we learned on the campaign, and that we to this point that Mary's making, we do not have enough shelter capacity to serve our families who are experiencing homelessness, including people who are experiencing domestic violence. So we are ready to work in partnership on that expansion, and that has to be a priority. But I felt like I needed to speak those numbers into the room.
Okay, so I have another question here for me. Can you please explain the plan that the city has to support local childcare providers? Yeah, good question. So yeah, I mean, childcare is a big priority for me, right? As you might know, I'm a mom myself. I have a 2.5-year-old, and I heard from so many families of young children during the campaign how hard it is to find affordable childcare in this city. And it's not just a problem for parents, right? Like also our childcare workers are some of the lowest paid workers in our community, right? And couldn't afford to put their own kid in the childcare that they provide, right? And it's very hard to be a childcare provider, right? The process of starting up a childcare facility, whether that's in your home or a childcare center, is very time consuming and expensive and difficult, right? So the childcare industry, so to speak, in the United States is really broken, right? And that's not an easy fix. That's something that ultimately should be happening at a national level, at a state level. Well, we got to do the best we can here in the city. So my office is going to be, basically convening people to really understand what are the challenges that childcare providers are facing, that families are facing, and what from the city side are the most impactful investments that we can make to improve this situation. So that means we're going to have to look for resources on the city side. And that's gonna be hard because we also have a big budget deficit to contend with at the city, so we don't have millions of dollars just lying around. But we're going to be working on that at the same time as we want to understand better the challenges that you all are facing. So I guess that's an invitation to come and talk to my office, because we're going to. You all are the experts in what it's like to try to operate a childcare facility in Seattle. So. There are things that we can do from the subsidy side, right, to make it easier for families to afford childcare, whether that's for very young children or summer care for K through 8 or preschool age. But from the side of a childcare provider, right, what are the challenges when you're trying to start something up, right, that the city can make easier, whether that's about permitting or whether that's about access to capital, to low interest loans to be able to start a center up, or capital for making an outdoor play area, or all the requirements that there are. So we want to know what those challenges are so we can figure out how we can best use the city's resources and expertise to make it easier.
Okay, if you want to come up here and introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Shakri. I'm a community member and I also work for Somali Family Safety Task Force. I hope you guys are all well today. I first want to recognize the 2 lives lost at Rainier Beach before anything and the tragedies that happened. This question is tailored towards the superintendent and maybe the officer, maybe Wilson as well. A year from now, how should Rainier Beach community or just the Seattle community measure whether your leadership actually made them feel safer? And we want it to be proactive instead of reactive constantly.
Good evening, everyone. I really appreciate the question, and I guess the first thing I would say is that I'm sorry. We lost 2 students. That's on us. The school district has to take ownership of every life, every child, every adult, every child, every single person that walks through our doors that we're there to protect. And we didn't do that. And that's on us. But at the end of the day, it's on me. And so I apologize. I apologize to the families of the children that got killed. I apologize to the community that had to suffer through it. But what I've also realized on day 3 of having this job and day 3 of living in Seattle is that we have to take action, but we also have to take the right action. One of the things that I want to really point out to this community and to this conversation is we have to talk about getting guns off the street. We have to talk about what is actually happening, which is weaponry is killing children. That is one of the things that we as a collective need to really work on. In the different cities that I've worked in New York, in Lansing, around the country, When we focus on actually working on gun violence, things change dramatically. I sat on the board of New Yorkers Against Gun Violence for 10 years. I worked with an organization called Kings Against Violence Initiative. And every time we focus on actually figuring out where the guns are, how they're getting into the hands of people, and we end that, it stops a lot of bad things from happening. And the other thing to think about is when we have access to weaponry, it's not just people killing others, it's people killing themselves. The rates of suicide, mental health, things like that. We have to make sure that access to weaponry is at a minimum and it is controlled, and we have to do a better job on that. And so the question of like, how are you gonna judge me? How are you gonna judge the school district? Is if stuff like this stops happening. I mean, it's as simple as that. We have to make sure that we are doing what we can. And what that means is, and I love, I appreciate the council member for saying this, we all have to work together. I am new here. I love everybody at this table. I think these are amazing people who are trying hard. I have heard that there has been tension before. I have heard that there have been silos before. I have heard that there has been inter-scene rivalries before. All that's got to go away. We have to make sure that the police are on the corner, but we also have to make sure that we're working with the police and that we are making sure that there's partnerships. We want to make sure the community organizations are on the streets. We want to make sure that the schools are on the streets. We have to make sure that we know, but we also have to be targeted. Where are our children getting hurt? Where are our children getting in trouble? We have to figure that out. We have to focus and work together. And so to answer the question in a kind of blunt manner, in a year from now, where do we want to be? We want to have this room packed as a celebration. We want to make sure that everybody feels heard, they feel welcome, and they feel safe. Now, can I promise that nobody's going to get shot? Absolutely not. You're going to learn about me, I'm pretty blunt. I cannot promise you that. But what I can promise is that the school district, along with all of our incredible partners, is we are going to work as hard as we possibly can, and we're going to show up every day, and we're going to make sure that we do what we can to try to get guns out of the hands of kids as well as out of the hands of adults. We're going to make sure that children have access and supports, that they can talk about it, and that we can be that trusted adult so that when we know that maybe something is happening, we can get there before something actually happens. And so I just want to say thank you to all of you for inviting me in on day 3. I want to make sure that I am thankful to the board members that were here, for the electeds that are here, for the community that is here, because, when the outside guy walks in, you don't always say hello and welcome. And I have to tell you how honored I've been with everybody in Seattle, welcoming me in and having me be part of the table. But as part of the table, you notice I didn't answer any question until I was asked directly. I want to be very thoughtful about this is your space. I hope it becomes our space. But I want to make sure that I'm listening, I'm hearing, and I think anybody who's done so before, if you email me, I will respond. If you have conversation, you have concerns, you have ways that you want us to act, please let us know. We can't promise that we're going to do everything, but we're absolutely going to promise that we're going to work. And I do apologize. I'm going to have to leave in a little bit because I got to go to the Rainier Beach High School basketball game because that's one of the places that I should be as well as in this community. So thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for the question, and I'll turn it back.
Thank you so much. Okay, let me get this.
Yeah, just on the question of what does success look like in a year, just one of the things that impressed me talking to youth and students over the last few days is just what it's like not to feel like you can be a kid and not to feel like you're safe just going outside and playing outside or going outside at night. And so to me, you can look at crime statistics and all that, but I think it's also just success looks like a year from now, youth feel safer going outside and being outside on their own, and their parents feel safer about their kids going outside and being outside at night.
And quickly, guys, I'm just gonna give a quick time check. We are running out of time here, so we're gonna try to go through these next questions very quickly, just to get our thoughts out there. But to put out there, we are running out of time. Thank you.
And I'm hoping that we have the chance to answer 3 more questions before the group photo. So let's go ahead.
Hello, my name is Eric Weiss, principal at Franklin High School and a parent there as well. Thank you, Kate and Sabella. We heard Kate and Sabella both talk today about trusted adults in the building and the different support they have. The support specialist that Sabella mentioned is somebody who's worked at at Franklin for over 15 years. The advisor for the BSU and her cheer coach and our restorative practice coordinator are all individuals who work directly for the school. We heard Kate talk about the importance of trusted adults that are sometimes not parents who are in the building. Currently, most of those individuals are individuals funded by the city levy in our buildings right now. I know the city levy was just renewed, but we are still waiting to hear on what the plan is for how that's going to be rolled out with the timeline that is aligned with our practices around hiring. So my question to the elected officials is, what is your plan to make sure that the city levy is still able to support those trusted adults that our schools are relying on?
Thank you, Eric.
Well, that's another question for me. Yeah, so, I'm a month into the job, but yeah, I recognize the importance of having continuity in funding, and so with the recently passed levy, which was larger than the expiring levy, I would hope that we'll be able to have that continuity for those positions. So happy to have my office come back to you with an answer about our process for making sure that happens.
Anybody else want to answer that? Okay, let's move on to the next one.
Okay, sorry. I was having a community session over here because I want to make sure that we get these questions answered, because it's not every day that we get to create a space where our voices matter and our questions can be answered. So I was talking to all of them and I was like, we probably have 2 more questions. We're going to try to squeeze it, but let's see what we can do. Okay, here you go.
I'll make it quick. So I'm a mom at South Shore of 2 kids. Thank you, Erika. You said you were there last year. You heard them talking about how much guns just impact our lives this past week. Last week, our 4th graders, same thing. All their presentations were on gun violence. Then I know you're saying day 3, but you were meeting with our group before you even started, right? So thank you for that. So we were making this, we knew this was gonna happen. Everybody knew this was gonna happen, right? And so this is an emergency. And I think it doesn't feel that way right now at South Shore. Yesterday was like an incredible showing, but I know, and I think it was Ben, you said in your press conference that we know the gold standard, unfortunately, for what to do after this happens. And it doesn't feel like that gold standard is happening at South Shore right now. And like, we're taking care of the teachers, we're trying to take care of our kids, we're trying to, like, we really, really appreciate, Katie, you showed up yesterday, Mayor. Thank you, and thank you for showing up. Like, that meant the world. Eddie, you were at the vigil. Like, we see you and we appreciate it and we need more of it. And so I want to know, like, when can we see that gold standard, and can that be this week at South Shore and Rainier Beach High School?
Thank you so much for the question, and of course, thank you for being a parent in this district. Thank you for trusting us with your children. But I know that at this point it's very hard. As you mentioned, there are things that are considered gold standard in school safety. One is a single point of entry. Another one is fencing. Another one is cameras. Another one, which is going to be a tough one, is metal detectors. I'm going to be very clear here. That is a gold standard, and I want to be very clear about why. Our children deserve to be as safe as when I go to a baseball game. Our children deserve to be as safe as when I go, I can't afford, but if I could go to a Seahawks game, I want to be as safe as when I go to a conference, a concert, an office building. Our children deserve the same kind of safety and the same kind of protection as you get when you go somewhere else. That's going to help. Now, I'm not going to make those decisions without listening to the board, listening to the community, but one of the things that I can say, and I hate ever saying this, but some people have called me an education expert. I would never call that of myself, but I will tell you that these are the gold standards that we can do, and we have to for our children. But in addition, as part of that, we also have to things like lights at the park that are next to our schools that don't have light We have to make sure that police are at the hot spots, that they are there not just 1 week, 2 weeks, but they are there for the year to build those relationships, build those communities. We have to make sure that the community organizations that have been out there continue to be out there, but that they're there at the time so that we're working together. And so what I can tell you is I'm having a meeting tomorrow to see what funding we have to actually start doing that. Because as I think a lot of us know, and I've witnessed this just in my 3 days, Seattle is this wonderful, amazing city, and we talk a lot. There's a lot of process. There's a lot of thinking, which is amazing. But we have to take action. Not that I would ever try to use somebody else's words without giving them credit, but Dr. King used the greatest phrase about this, the fierce urgency of now. That is what is today, and that is what we need to do, and I look forward to all of you supporting us with doing these gold standards with the city, with the police, with the school district, and with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I am Violet Lavatai. I'm an executive director of a housing tenant rights organization. I'm also part of the community. Right now, dealing with ICE and dealing with some of the shootings. I grew up in Seattle, so I'm from Seattle. And growing up in this neighborhood, it just feels like what a heavy burden. And I think one of the things I want to talk about is the many buildings that are up for sale now in Seattle. Displacement is at an all-time high. Some of the tenants I work with are undocumented, so the landlords are kind of like bullying them. I go after them, but the thing is we need the help out there. Some of the buildings that we're going in, our team, is we're just trying to stop these people from reporting undocumented tenants. We already have a displacement. People are going on the streets in their cars. King County has the highest rate of evictions going on right now. I'm a housing advocate. And my job is we're trying to stop displacement. It's already happened. My question to everybody, because here's the thing. We've seen administration come in, our neighbor, in our community, talk a good game, but there is nothing that's changed. We want change. I'm here, I work with Dion Foster for years, and Eddie Lynn is a good friend of mine, and we're giving the opportunity for this mayor. There is a lot of things going on in Seattle. A lot of things going on in Seattle. Our commitment to all of you is to support you in the roles that will help our community. What we're asking is your leadership not to give up. We've seen people talk a good game to us. Listen, I've been there, I've been a community activist for a long time. I've heard it all. Here's the thing, we're gonna hold everybody accountable this time. Down from the Seattle public schools, I went to Rainier Beach. My kids went to public schools, but we wanna know your commitment to the community. Because Seattle is dying right now, and we need you guys to step it up. I'm gonna support you, Mayor Katie. I'm gonna support you because we're in the community. We want results in how do we help the people that need help right now. Thank you.
I wanted to offer a response to the superintendent's comments around the gold standard. Violence at the core of violence really started with the military, right? And slave patrol that transformed into policing, that transformed into ICE, that transformed into the systemic violence that continues to target and kill Black and brown people.
Look, I appreciate what you're saying, and certainly the last thing I would want is to militarize anything, but I think my concern with the analysis is rich people have protection. Families who have money have protection. What I want to make sure of is, as a school superintendent, that the 50,000 children walk into a school building every day and that they feel protected and they can walk out. This is not about thinking that children are doing anything wrong. It's about making sure that nothing comes into the building.
Today it was good to see Black officers, but we're not saying we don't want other officers. It needs to look like the community. It needs to look like how it did yesterday when even our white neighbors and new neighbors came in and just were interested on how do I be a part of this? How can I just step in? Katie, I seen you. Like, let me just be quiet and see what I can do. Ben, you're coming in hot because you're used to diversity, and we're a little bit, you're from an older city than us, so it's gonna look a little bit different, and we didn't prepare to grow this fast. So as we make all these apartment complexes, we have not dealt with what we already have going on in 9118. We're not prepared for the growth. So you guys, the police officers, everyone, it's not my fault, it's not my fault. We can't blame y'all because you guys are losing. But I think we're heading in the right direction by coming together. I'm loud, I don't need this, but we're coming together in the right direction. I had a homeless man that didn't have a phone that lives in back of the tiny homes. I'm sorry I'm taking space, but he wanted to help y'all. He didn't have a phone and he overheard me talking. He was like, I don't know what to do, but I want to help. There was a lady with mental illness today. I've been at the bus stop with them guys all day. I have not walked Rainier to South End for 20 years, but this is something, that's my grounds, that's my turf. My people in here, I'm walking down Rainier. People call me, got beach see me, and I'll be out here every day. My daughter is not going back to beach until you guys figure this out. If I have to pull her out, I appreciate you for meeting with me today for the school district. Mine ain't coming back. So the conversation is, what's the alternative? Are you guys gonna have remote learning? Because you've seen it, and it's nothing but the grace of God that you were able to see it, where I don't even have to explain. The kids are choosing not to go in, they're not safe. So what are they doing? The safest places in the school? They're in the streets out there. And I'm not mad at them. You know what I did? I love y'all, be safe. 10, am I lying? Like 10 kids in the car, we're all out there together. So come out there and see what we're doing and show up. And I can say that the ones that are showing up, get you, Assistant Chief Davis, when I first met you, get your behinds out the car, meet the community, and be the community. Deontay, I'm gonna give you your flowers, bro, because I sit at different tables with you, but the way you've been showing up and listening, you've been listening, and we've been yelling, and you've been pushing the button and calling people where I've had to shut up, and I'm not one to be at a loss for words. So I've taken your time, I know. Thank you.
You said things that need to be said. Thank you.
Can we get another round of applause?
We ask kids to tell us, but we don't give them protection. They tell us what they need, and they never see it in action. We talk about discipline, but we don't have belonging policies that go with those discipline. We talk about safety. People talk about Chicago public schools, but for Chicago public schools, safety is only one half, restorative practices and wellness. So how are we going to incorporate those things so we can truly educate the whole child? Because we're asking them to do something and we're not giving them the tools to do it.
Yeah. I mean, you got to do both, right? I mean, the most important thing, and I will say, I was at a school today. I was actually at 5 schools today. And one of the schools that I was at, there were only 80 students in it. And they had a full-time social worker. There's another school that I was at, there's only had 150 kids and had a social worker and a school counselor. There's no question that the school district is investing a lot of money into restorative practices, RJ, all of that. We have to do more, there's no question. But I do want to be very clear. We have been doing this side of the work a lot. And I don't know if it's moving the needle. So we have to do more. We have to listen to our children more. We have to listen to our adults more that are in the school district. But I want to be clear that come see our schools. Come see the amount of support that children are getting. And the question just is, clearly it's not enough. And so what else do we need to do? And that's what I'd like to ask all of you. And I got a lot of emails when I wrote the letter on Sunday. But please know that the district is putting an incredible amount of resources towards guidance, towards social work, towards all of that. And so to the question that was asked, she's absolutely right, 100%. Are we giving kids enough space so that they can be safe? No. Are they giving enough space where they can feel heard? No. Are they giving enough space where they can feel safe? No. And so we need to work more. But what I'm seeing is doing the same thing over and over and over again is not going to get different results. So we have to start thinking differently around how we think about schools and children here in Seattle. Thank you.